Parimal is also in South Australia.
Ah, that's my preferred. Hello, you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Auntie Marjorie.
Hi.
How are you?
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Hello, Marjorie.
Oh, hi, Robert. Nice to see you. Lovely.
Long time.
Long time. Wonderful.
Okay, Tracy, I have the host, and
Should we start now, Siva?
yeah, I will resume recording, and then you can start.
Okay.
Have you asked people who are the readers? Are you going to do that, Maria?
Yeah, I'm going to start once he starts recording. Is it better?
Maybe you can allocate the readers now, and then we will resume recording.
Okay, okay, that's good. Thank you for that. Yep, okay, maybe I'll get Ahmed, you want to do one?
Sure.
Reading
Number one?
number one, reading?
Oh, it doesn't matter for me.
Okay, thank you. Colin, number two.
Okay.
And Robert, are you happy to do three?
Yes.
Thank you, Robert. And Marjorie, you want to do a reading or?
I might pass.
Okay,
Thank you.
and thank you. That's all I understand. Perimal? Perimal, are you on? Okay, Perimal, are you able to do a reading for us, number 4, Perimal?
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you. And I'll do number 5. And Siva, are you able to do number 6?
Sure.
There's nobody else. Who is Nuvika? Nuvika?
Hi. Hi.
Are you
Alpha.
happy to do the number 6 or 5, Nuvika, reading?
Yeah, sure. Number what?
Number 6.
Number 6. Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't. Have I pronounced your name rightly or wrong? Did I make a mistake?
Nuvika.
Nuvika. All right. Thank you, Nuvika. Okay, so today. So we got only 6 readings. Let's see.
Tracy, I'm unable to
Record.
yes, you have to give me permission to. I mean, you must make me host first, Tracy.
Okay, hang on. I'll just stop sharing for a second. There's a live stream going on. That's different. Or do you?
Yes.
So you want me to just start the recording?
Oh, you can. Oh, you can record. Can you press?
Yeah. The recording is paused, and I can unpause it.
Okay.
Two C was in there. One of them is co-host.
Pardon?
Two C was.
Yeah, yeah, it's okay. Don't worry.
One of them is co-host.
Anyway, do you want me to start the recording again?
Am I? You can make me co-host then.
Now we're recording.
Okay, that's good. Okay, let's. Well, we got about 12 participants. Maybe we should start now. And first of all, I would like to welcome you all, and especially Marjorie, for accepting to do the speech at the very short notice. And thank you very much, Marjorie, for doing that. And we're very happy about it. And we will have 6 readings and 1 song at the start. And we're going to have Tracy will do the welcoming of the national, for the national Aboriginal and national people. Tracy?
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, so I'll do the acknowledgement. I'm unqualified to do a welcome because I'm not Indigenous, but I will acknowledge that I'm on Worimi land, but we're each of us are zooming in from Aboriginal land, and we want to pay our respects to them and to the elders, past and present, for their custodianship of this land, their obedience to God's calling to look after the land and to care for it and care for all the people and animals and plants which are upon it. So we wish to honour that and acknowledge that sovereignty is all ongoing and it's the basis upon which we are benefiting. Thank you.
thank you, Tracy.
Want to share the screen?
Yeah.
You have to stop the video.
Okay.
Tracy, you have to stop the music.
Okay.
And Matthew Priestley is here too.
Okay.
So so let's start the readings now. And the readings will be on the screen. And the first reading will be Ahmed. Ahmed.
Can you see it or not?
You need to
No,
unmute.
I can't see it, but I can read from my mobile because I have it in. I might read when you try to get it in on the screen.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah, it's there.
Okay.
But if one deals with objects of the sense, not loving and not hating, making them serve his free soul, which rests serenely, Lord. Lo, such a man comes to tranquility, and out of that tranquility shall rise the end and healing of his earthly pains, since the will governed sets the soul at peace. Hindu scripture of Bhagavad Gita.
Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits. Who forgiveth all thine iniquities, who healeth all thy diseases, who redeemeth thy life from destruction, who crowneth thee with loving kindness and tender mercies, who satisfieth thy mouth with good things, so that thy youth is renewed like the eagles. The Lord executeth righteousness and judgment for all that are oppressed. Jewish scripture, Psalms.
Robert, you want to read 3?
Hunger is the supreme disease. Mental activity is the supreme suffering. When one has grasped this as it really is, nirvana is the supreme happiness. Health is the supreme possession. Contentment is the supreme wealth. A trustworthy friend is the supreme relation. Nirvana is the supreme happiness. After enjoying a taste of solitude and the taste of peace, one is freed from stress and evil, as one enjoys the taste of spiritual joy. Buddhist scriptures.
And Jesus went about all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease among the people. And seeing the multitude, he went up into the mountain. And when he was set, his disciples came unto him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Christian scripture, the gospel according to Matthew.
In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, the Lord of worlds, who hath created me and guided me, who giveth me food and drink, and when I am sick, he healeth me, and who will cause me to die and again quicken me, and who I hope will forgive me my sins in the day of reckoning. My Lord, bestow on me wisdom and join me to the just, and give me a good name among posterity, and make me one of the heirs of the garden of delight. And forgive my father, for he was one of the erring, and put me not to shame on the day when mankind shall be raised up, the day when neither wealth nor children shall avail, save to him who shall come to God with a sound heart, when paradise shall be brought near the pious, and hell shall lay open for those who have gone astray, and it shall be said to them, where are they whom ye worshipped beside God? Can they harm you or help themselves? The Holy Quran. Navisa? Navisa, are you able to read? Navisa? Navisa, you want to read that? I'll read it. O befriended stranger, the candle of thine heart is lighted by the hand of my power. Quench if not with the contrary winds of self and passion. The healer of all thine ills is remembrance of me. Forget it not. Make my love thy treasure and cherish it even as thy very sight and life. By scripture. So now we welcome Dr. Marjorie Chidman, who is going to give us a talk on God and the mad psychologist. I'll just give a small background about Marjorie. Dr. Marjorie Chidman has a first-class honors degree from Sydney University and was awarded the University Medal and a doctorate in educational psychology from Murdoch University. Until recently retiring, she was a registered psychologist in Australia. She began her career working with children, families, and classrooms within school settings, then established a private practice which involved serving populations in remote regions of Western Australia. Thank you. For 15 years, she specialized in responding to those impacted by sudden trauma, whether individuals, families, organizations, or communities across Western Australia, and including some remote islands. Her university research, voluntary community services, and professional trauma response have been recognized by the university, state, and national awards. Marjorie has been a long-standing member of the Australian Baha'i community and served on its national governing body for 12 years. Welcome, Marjorie. It's a lot of things you've done and a lot of medals you got, and you've done a lot of volunteer service. I'm very proud, and you've been 12 years is a long time to be in the governing body, and we are happy to have you today. Unmute.
Marjorie, you had to unmute.
Unmute.
How's that? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm very excited to be here, and I really enjoyed all the beautiful readings that were chosen for today's sacred devotional section. So thank you for including me. That was really beautiful. Now, yesterday, Colin asked me whether I would be available to do a presentation tonight. And I'm just hoping that, given the short notice, you will forgive me for all the deficiencies in the presentation. The only way I was able to accept is if you would allow me to read a little bit, read a few sections from the book. This is not a book promotion or a book launch or anything, but this is the book, Sifting the Dust, God and the Mad Psychologist. And so I will be reading a few short sections from this book, and I'm hoping that I won't bore you, and hoping that it will be of interest to everyone. So at the end of last year, I retired as a psychologist, and honestly, it has been a wonderful, wonderful career, not without lots of challenges, of course, but the most common questions that people ask, the first question they ask when they find out that you're a psychologist is, can you read my mind? And I always say no. We don't read minds. We listen to people, and we listen to people's stories, and people's stories are very, very precious. The second question they ask when they stop panicking that I'm a psychologist and they're wondering whether they're going mad or whether I think they're going mad, the second question they ask is, how do you cope? How do you cope being a psychologist, listening to all of the difficult stories and all of the sad stories and stories of trauma? Now, here is the thing that people don't realize, is that within the stories that we're hearing, the stories of human suffering, we're also hearing the stories of resilience and the stories of transformation and the stories of hope that are emerging within and from the darkness. And it's an incredible honor to bear witness to the stories that people bring as they're searching for the light in the darkness of whatever is happening in their life at the moment. But Helen Keller, the famous American, said, who was blind, and I think she was also deaf, she said, the world is full of suffering. The world is also full of the overcoming of it. So the world is full of suffering, yes, we can focus on that, but the world is full of the overcoming of human suffering. And a psychologist, and many of you maybe in your professions or in your personal lives, are also involved in assisting people who, at a difficult time in their life. And it's an honor and a privilege to be a small part of that process of bearing witness to the unfolding stories that people share. So this book was written in response to lots of people asking me to talk about the trauma that I'd been through. And the trauma, the major trauma that I went through, I'm not going to tell you tonight because I don't want to traumatize you and I don't want you to lose sleep after this session for a few nights. But just very, very briefly, I'll share that that I was at home alone with my baby who was 4 months old, and an intruder came and attacked me with a knife. And I received multiple wounds, but I was lucky to survive and then recover from that trauma. And that took a lot of effort. But the story of the event and the recovery process is simply 3 or 4 chapters embedded about 2/3 of the way through this book. The book itself is a quest, a personal quest to understand the mystery of human suffering. Now, if you believe in God, I believe in God, although I don't understand God. He's unknowable and mysterious and overwhelming. But if one believes that there is a source of love and wisdom and that created us, then we have to, at some point, come to terms with the fact that suffering is a part of our human experience. And as we become more awakened to the world and the depth of human suffering everywhere, we think, how is it possible that God could allow so much suffering to take place in so many people's lives, in so many communities? So to reconcile a belief in a loving creator with the depth of human suffering is something that I wanted to wrestle with and understand in this book. So that's just a little bit of a introduction. So if you will allow me, I'm just going to read a little bit from the preface, a little bit from the introduction, one of the short stories about someone in the book, and then a second story of something interesting that happened after the major trauma and the kind of work I was doing after that. But I'll keep checking in with all of you. If I see most of you are asleep, we will just stop reading, and I'll open it up for questions and we'll interact. So give me lots of clear signals that you're still there and that I'm not causing you to fall asleep.
Marjorie, I'm not sleeping.
Okay, thank you. So from the preface, is Colin there? Is Colin still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Colin, did you manage to get the quotes onto the screen, or was it too difficult?
No, they're ready to share. You can share, or I can share if you like, if screen sharing is allowed.
If you can share them, that might make it easier. If you can share them, it'll make it easier for people to follow.
No problem, just a moment.
So I hastily took some photographs from the book and sent them to Colin, and some of you may be able to follow, may want to follow the reading on the screen.
Okay, looks like I can share screen. Tell me if the pages are in the wrong order.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. The mystery of human suffering sooner or later challenges us all, but it is especially problematic for people who believe that there is loving intelligence behind creation. A personal quest to understand this mystery began as a teenager and continued through adulthood while working with people who had been impacted by sudden trauma. My search for answers intensified after I was attacked by a knife-wielding intruder who broke into our home one night while I was sleeping next to my 5-month-old baby Raymond. One unexpected insight gained during the writing of this book was recognition that the experience and questioning of suffering unites people of all beliefs, including atheism. So from the introduction now, Colin, if we go to the next one. Okay. Okay, just, yes, stop there. At a deeper level, I am trying to say something about the universal story, the search for something mysterious, glorious, transcendent, which gives our lives meaning. Using the only authority I have, my own eyes and my own experience of the world, I am sifting the dust of human experience, searching for the gold which might lead us to the beloved. This author assumes that a greater intelligence than ours exists, that this powerful force created the expanding universe, and that all the major world religions were revealed by and draw their inspiration from this single point. Okay, thank you, Colin. We'll move to the next one. From the introduction now. People are zigzagging in all directions fast, and I stop to look around. It is the middle of the city mall. Where are they all going in such a rush? A few youth are clowning around. They have time on their hands. Time has run out for the elderly homeless lady lying next to several plastic shopping bags. I try not to think about her situation, or it will overwhelm me. May the angels call her home without too much more suffering. Am I one of those earthly angels who might help her? No, I am one of the silent majority. I can close my eyes and sleep when faced with human suffering. Sleep brings relief from the insanity of the world until something rattles the core of my being. A slow learner, I have to be woken up again and again. And to the next page. I don't know how many of you have read the amazing book by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, but it's had a very big impact on me. I think I've read it several times now. And there's one beautiful story in there that I refer to here. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, medical doctor Viktor Frankl described the conditions inside Auschwitz prison, the Nazi concentration camp built in Poland after it was annexed by Germany. He wrote of the emaciation of bodies and the shutting down of the human spirit, deprived of every kind of earthly comfort, including human compassion, and subject to starvation, hard manual labor, fatigue, and illness. Hundreds of thousands of men and women experienced 2 deaths, first spiritually with hope gone, and then physically as their body collapsed and died from exhaustion or illness or in the gas chambers. In these conditions of extreme suffering and severe deprivation, the author described how his imagination kept him alive. As he shut down thoughts of the outer world, an inner world opened. He replayed memories of his former life over and over again. His wife's face, the music they played when they entertained guests, and other visions of their happier lives. Without knowing whether his wife was alive or dead, he recreated their world in his mind, and there he lived. When he was in prison, Dr. Frankel came across a lady who would die in the next few days. The hut she lived in had a small window, and out of the window, she could see one branch of a chestnut tree. Not even the whole tree. And on that branch were 2 blossoms. She told the doctor that the tree was the only friend she had in her loneliness, and that she often talked to the tree. Anxiously questioning her sanity, he asked her if the tree talked back to her. She said yes. And he inquired further, what did it say to her? I am here, I am here, I am life, eternal life. Most people are searching for something which lifts them above the constant struggle, the cycle of daily hardships, the relentless battles of living, something transcendent, powerful, meaningful, even glorious. Colin, we might go to a couple more slides across. Keep going.
I don't think there's any more to show.
Oh, okay, no worries. An ever-present thirst, the search for love or knowledge, for happiness or power, for truth, beauty or wisdom, for money or status, for purpose and meaning. Sometimes all of these is pursued with determination. Some attain their goal and then discover it was not what they were looking for after all, and a new search begins. Anxiety feeds the new search because much time has been lost in the old. Others fail to attain their goals, often after years of struggle and effort, and lose hope, become cynical, and then live with the black dogs of anxiety and depression. Or they become addicted to fragments of temporary happiness, alcohol or a computer game, or even to a dysfunctional relationship, and so become trapped in a cave by their own patterns of behavior. A moth is attracted to the light of the candle, yet the candle burns the moth repeatedly. So I was searching for something. I wasn't searching for a religion. I felt like I'd found my faith as a Baha'i, but I was searching for a different way of understanding God and how God works in the world, how God, what the meaning of suffering was. You know, did suffering have meaning? And then throughout my life both as a Baha'i and also as a psychologist, I met many dozens, if not hundreds and hundreds of people, and had the honor of hearing their stories and learning from each of them. So here is just one of those stories. So Colin, none of the other pages came through?
No, sorry. Just the 6 which I showed.
Okay, not to worry. Okay, all right. Can I just have a check-in with everybody? Can you wave your hand if you're okay?
All okay.
Okay, great. So so I should keep going, yes? Or yes, okay, I'll keep going. So here is one of the stories of one of the children that I worked with. I was working as a school psychologist, spread thinly between 5 schools, each of which could have used a full-time psychologist in the role. One morning, I finished a meeting at one of the primary schools around 11 o'clock and was going to return to the high school across the road for a midday appointment when one of the deputy principals approached me. She said that one of their boys, George, had been pulled out of his classroom for repeated aggressive behavior. The children were all scared of him. Some of the teachers were scared of him too. He was 11 years old, tall for his age and strong. The deputy begged me to do some work with him then and there. Can you do anything? I had no idea what to do. I agreed to spend some time with George, knowing that I had less than an hour, no plan in my mind, and rising adrenaline. What am I going to do? I hoped something would come to me. The deputy went off to find George, and a few minutes later brought him back, ushered us both into a small interview room, and left us alone. George and I sat down at a small table. He had a growing reputation on the streets in the town as a young thug. But this was my first opportunity to work with him. I still had no idea what to do, and I was straining for inspiration. I was in a state of constant prayer. I pulled out a blank sheet of paper and a pen. So all I had was a blank sheet of paper and a pen, and I still had no idea what I was going to do. And I asked George to write down his name in the middle of the page. Then I asked him a question. Can you tell me the name? Can you tell me the name of everyone who loves you? Whether George was surprised or not was impossible to guess. His face was blank. The seconds were ticking by, but George stared at the paper for a while as I waited. Then he gave me one name, then another, then slowly more and more names, nanas and pops, his mum, aunts and uncles, a few sisters and cousins, then more cousins among his large extended family. The names kept coming. I wrote down every name in the shape of a large circle of about 20 people around George's name. Every time I wrote down a name, I also drew an arrow from the person towards George. The love inside this circle of names was all directed towards George. Once he had stopped naming people, I asked George a second question. Can you name all the people you love? His face was still blank, devoid of all expression. However, one by one and extremely slowly, he named all the same people on the page. I drew arrowheads on the other end of each line, directing the love from George back to everyone in his circle. This process unfolded over a 30 to 40 minute period. When he was finished, he leaned back in his chair. I offered him the page to take home with him, and he took it. That was all we had time to do, and so I thanked him for working with me and handed him back to the deputy, who was surprised to see a meek version of the angry child. George was now calm and reflective. I raced off to my next appointment, knowing that the exercise was a drop in the ocean of George's need to feel safe at school and in town. We had to find more comprehensive ways to support his moral and social development, and at the same time support his teacher and peers at school. A few days later, I was walking past the town library when I saw George's mother hailing me from across the road. George's mother also had a reputation as someone not to be messed with. She was large, loud, and intimidating. My anxiety increased when she came right up to me questioning, "What did you do with George?" Before I could respond, she said, "After he saw you at school the other day, he'd been different. We were walking along the street and he put his arm around me, and we walked like that for a while. He never does that. He'd been less angry. His auntie and sisters also said he'd been acting strange. He's much happier and talking to us. We've all been talking about it. Now, this particular boy, George, he did end up in and out of remand centres, and by the time he was 17 or so, he'd been to Perth and back and was, really well on the way to becoming, a big major problem. But the incident, the major incident that occurred to me a few years later, after that story of George, when I was in recovery from that trauma, and I was learning how to feel safe again, and learning how particularly to feel safe in and around Indigenous people, because I was attacked by a young Indigenous person. So during that time of intense recovery, and when I was very, very fragile, something happened where I met George again. Okay, so George wasn't the one that attacked me. George was the kid that I'd worked with. On my first drive out of town to visit my friend Karina on her plantation, I had both my children in the car. We were returning home at dusk when I realized the car was running low on fuel. I drove into the petrol station and was refueling the car when I heard a voice calling, "Miss, miss." I looked out across to see a car full of black faces, and the driver was calling me over to his car. Terror swept through me and my heart started racing, but I willed myself to stay calm. I noted that there was an attendant manning the petrol station, although he was indoors. There were no other people around refueling their vehicles. Miss, it's me, George." I recognized the boy who I had worked with as a 10-year-old, the apprentice thug, the boy who had written down all the people he loved on a piece of paper. He was now about 18 or 19, and I knew he had been in and out of remand centres in Perth following delinquent behaviour in the local community. Here he was now back in town. I walked very, very nervously over to the car. "Miss, I was in the lockup same night when Brian, did that to you. I told him off. I said you should have never done that to her. I said you tried to help us kids." These teenagers in the car were among the group of kids who had found a safe refuge at the youth centre where Peter and I had been involved. Everyone in the car was nodding in agreement with George's actions. I thanked him and walked back to my car, profoundly moved, tearful. There are no words to describe what that conversation meant to me. So many beautiful people I've been privileged to work with, and he stands out. That even, we can look at people and we can look at their delinquent behavior, or we can look at the problems that they're manifesting, but when we tap into every individual's need to be loved and need to be understood and help create safe environments for them to be heard, this can bring out the very best in them, as it did even though he was in jail. He was telling off the guy who'd attacked me and saying, "You shouldn't have done it to her." I don't know whether he said you should have done it to someone else. No, that's not good. But you shouldn't have done it to her. She tried to help us. And that, just that memory of that conversation was a very, very powerful part of my healing after the trauma. Now, can I just get a signal from everyone that you're still there and I'm not talking too much? Okay, I've got a few waves. Can't see anyone asleep.
Marjorie,
That's-
I just want to let you know that we have an Indigenous brother here, Matthew Priestley. This is his second time attending.
Oh, can you wave?
Matthew,
Oh, where is he? Oh, lovely, beautiful. Hi,
yes,
Matthew.
he's
Well,
from,
there's so many.
he's from Maury.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
telling me.
On to Tracy is a member of the Women's Reconciliation Network,
Mm-hmm.
and they have every Wednesday they have a meeting about Uluru Statement, and that is where I met Brother Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
So he has attended for the second time here. Anyway,
Okay, lovely. Thank you for telling me that. That's wonderful. So Colin will tell you that this that there is lots of beautiful stories in here about the beautiful Indigenous friends that we became close to, and when after the attack, the veils were gone. When you're becoming friends with anybody, it doesn't matter who they are, what culture or background or nationality or religion, there are certain veils between the hearts, or between the hearts and minds, and friendship and the development of trust takes time. But after this traumatic experience, the veils just all came completely down, such that the embrace of love that surrounded our family, primarily from the Indigenous community, but from people of different religions as well, from the Catholic community that said Mass on 2 occasions for our family, and from the Uniting Church, and so across the faith communities, but primarily from the Indigenous community, was so overwhelming. It was a very, very significant part of my ability to recover. It wasn't from going to a psychologist. So it was from the love of the community around us. So one of the things I wanted to share was that when you face a trauma, and I don't want to magnify what I went through, and I don't want to minimize anyone else's difficult experiences, because everyone's experiences and everyone's path and the difficulties we face are unique. But I just want to say that what I did go through was pretty scary, that's all. And a really big dose of fear. And in recovering from it, and trying to make peace with God, and trying and straining to say, why have I had to go through this? And what do you want me to learn? And how can I grow? And did I deserve it? Was it some karmic law that I'd, attracted this to myself? Which would have made it worse. But even though I couldn't answer all those questions I put to God, yet there was an inner voice saying, just be at peace. The answers will come. Peace will come. It will become clear. And I put a lot of effort into the recovery process through prayer and through music, and through even starting back at work after 4 months was a huge relief to be able to focus on other people's needs and issues and forget about myself. So you kind of step out of my own prison of inner dialogue that I was wrestling with, and step out of that and into other people's worlds and be of service to them. And that was a big part of the journey of recovery. And then a mysterious, unexpected chapter of life opened up after that, which was working with organizations and communities that were impacted by sudden trauma. And if you've been through something rather big oneself, it reduces your fear of and strained and struggle to recover. It reduces your fear of other traumas, so that it gave me one of the gifts that it gave me was the ability to bear witness to organizations and communities who were facing a collective trauma. So I've just got one more story to share. There's a lot of those stories about after the attack, and there's quite a few stories about the work that unfolded. For example, I was privileged to go to Christmas Island after the boat crash, that awful boat crash, and work with the rescuers of the Navy ship and the Customs and Border Protection, and then work with them over a 2-year period through the coronial inquests and so forth. So I've just got one more story. How are we going for time? Is the chairperson waving at me yet?
No, that's fine.
No?
You can go ahead.
Okay. I had just finished a couple of days' work with a government department in Port Hedland and was heading for the airport to return to Perth when I received a call from the practice manager where I was engaged as a consultant. She said, "There has been a motor vehicle accident on the highway south of Hedland. One woman has died and another woman has been flown to hospital and in a critical condition. Are you available to stay overnight and tomorrow visit the mine site closest to the accident?" The emergency response team from the closest mine site attended, and some of them are a bit shaken up. You'll need to hire a car. It's about 100 kilometers to the mine. I arrived at the site and was briefed by the paramedic and spent some time with the emergency response team, followed by sessions with a few individuals who were highly impacted. The incident had occurred on a remote stretch of highway. Although the team had had a satellite phone to communicate with doctors in Port Hedland, the transmission had been poor, the airwaves crackled, and the line kept dropping out. The Royal Flying Doctor Service was on its way, and the team's job was to protect the body of the deceased and to keep the remaining patient alive. Every member of the team told their part of the story. The victims were lying on the road, and one person devoted himself to keeping the ants away, another to fetching water for all involved, and another to provide shade, one more to communications, while the paramedic and others were tending the victims with the medical equipment and expertise they had. A member of the team visiting Australia from Africa and on a working visa commented that he was amazed by the response of the people passing by. Almost every vehicle passed either stopped to help or slowed to ask if there was something they could do. This would not have happened in my home country, he said. For all involved, the experience had been deeply moving because of the fragility of life, the nearness of death, but also because their teamwork over many hours was finely tuned harmony. Many individuals serving in perfect unity to protect the deceased and also to preserve life. Now, a few years later, after that critical incident and my involvement, a mysterious convergence of people and events unfolded 1,500 kilometers south in Perth. There had been a major motor vehicle accident late one night in a residential area north of the river in Perth. 2 teams of paramedics attended, along with members of the police and the fire brigade, each with their own roles, which included heroic attempts to resuscitate the deceased and support the distressed family. A couple of days after the incident, one of the paramedics who had responded was not doing well. When the call came to support this paramedic, I prayed for the capacity to be a pure channel of divine grace. At that time, I was in a temporary position at St. John's Ambulance, replacing someone on holidays. And so while driving to the home of the paramedic, I decided to pray for assistance from St. John, something I had never thought to do before. During the drive, I asked God for someone on the other side who might have been close to the paramedic to also assist our meeting. Would I share my prayer requests with the paramedic? Most likely not. Unless there was exceptional rapport, I knew she was not going to label me a fruitcake. She would think I was crazy, that I was praying to, if there was someone on the other side that might help us. I arrived at the door and was welcomed inside. I felt an instant rapport with this lady in her mid-30s. Within 15 minutes, and as she was making tea, I asked her if she had anyone close to her pass away in recent years. A risky question for a psychologist to ask someone I had just met. She replied without any hesitation, yes, my mother died in a motor vehicle accident a few years ago. And then she proceeded to explain. I was living in Port Hedland, so this is her words now, the paramedic. She said, I was living in Port Hedland at the time and raising 3 kids on my own. My mother and I were close and she was a great support. The car accident happened on a remote part of the highway south of Hedland. I was devastated, but I could not cry. I was so angry with God for taking my mother. I loved her and I needed her. I had always believed in God, but the accident triggered major doubts. How could a loving God do this? I hated him for taking my mother. One night I got drunk and ranted at God for hours. Prove to me that you exist, with some swear words thrown in. I want to know, I need to know, I'm so angry. Why did you take my mother? It was late at night and I decided to drive to the scene of the accident. I had no idea where the accident had occurred on the road. It was crazy to go and I was raging with God. It was after midnight when I reached the area, driving along looking for the spot. Then I saw my father parked on the side of the road. I was drunk and not prepared to face him. He would tell me off for drinking, and so I continued driving to the roadhouse. It was a small miracle, but thanks to my father, I knew where the accident occurred. I turned around at the roadhouse and returned to the spot my father had gone. The police markings were still on the road. Standing at the spot, the floodgates opened and I began sobbing. I didn't know how long I was there alone, but a passing car pulled over to the side road and a large black man wound down his window and asked if I was okay. I looked up and said, yes, I'm okay. He asked, did you know the person who died here? Yes, it was my mother. He climbed out of the car and walked over to me and said, on that day, I was in the car behind the car that crashed. I clearly remember it overtaking me on the road, and then a short time later, I saw the scene of the accident and was the first person to pull over. I got out to see what I could do and called the emergency services. I was holding your mother when she died. I cried all over again, but this time the pain was mixed with tears of joy. If there was any proof I needed that God was there and also still cared about me, here it was. This man was there with my mother and also with me on that night. As she was telling her story, we were both emotional. She even more so when I shared my role in debriefing the people who looked after her mother and her mother's friend. Although breaking confidentiality is a cardinal sin for psychologists, in this unusual meeting of hearts, both trying to unlock the mysteries of life and death, I did not hesitate to share something of the love and care, the harmony of thought and action which had surrounded her mother and her mother's friend at the scene of the accident, the capable medic, the role of the ant sweeper, the water carrier, the problems with the satellite phone, the marathon of harmonious teamwork under the hot sun. In that sacred moment, it seemed possible that the prayers of souls might be intertwined across time and space, perhaps this time via St. John, in whose service we were both engaged. Our prayers had been answered in a way which far exceeded chance or imagination. So I'm going to just leave it there because I think that's enough reading. And I really want to hear from you. And if there's a question that I have for you, because I'd rather hear your stories than listen to my story. If there's a question I have for you, each of you, it is, can you think of something that's happened in your life, and it doesn't have to be a big thing, it might be a small thing, which was difficult to go through, but on the other side of it, on the other side, when you'd worked it through and you'd thought about it and maybe you'd prayed about it and you had a new understanding, you reached a point where you knew why you had to go through that. There were new insights, there was a new awareness, there was a new connectedness, whatever it was, that you were on the other side of a dark night or a painful chapter, but you were at the point of thanking God for the difficulty that you'd been through, whether you brought it upon yourself by being overtired and falling over, it doesn't matter, or whether it had come just unexpectedly, it doesn't matter, the cause. But on the other side of a difficult chapter, you reach a point of insight and gratitude for having gone through something difficult. So I just pose that question if anyone feels comfortable to answer it.
Well, I think I should, though I can't exactly answer the way that you have asked the question. There is a particular prayer by the Bab, and I memorized that one sentence, and it goes on like this: I know of a certainty, by the virtue of my love for thee, that thou wilt never cause tribulations to befall any soul, unless thou desires to exalt his station in thy celestial paradise, and to buttress his heart in this earthly life with the bulwark of thine all-compelling power, that it may not become inclined towards the vanities of this world. Now, it's only about 8 or 9 years ago, I became aware or closely with this part of the prayer. Ever since, I might have told this hundreds of people. And recently, I'm still recuperating from my misadventure at the ocean pool, Monowell. I was thrown away by the soon after I got up from this, from the sea. So immediately I thank God. I always, I mean, I now I tell my friends, I think God has given me a chiropractic adjustment through this wave. That's how I look at it. But this is my perspective of sufferings and pain. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Beautiful quote too.
Yes, Young, you want to answer? You have Young?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yes, yeah.
Anyone else?
Hello, Auntie Marjorie. Thank you so much for your inspirational stories. You're very creative and very talented. The thing that I was wondering, with your talents, you talk a lot about unity. For me, unity will have to go with high trust and budget. If we don't have good budget allocated and we don't have high trust, it's going to be difficult for us to reach unity with people and to have conciliation with God, because God even wanted people to offer charity and donation. So that's one thing. The second thing is, through all the Prime Minister's regime, like Prime Minister Bob Hawke, Paul Keating, John Howard, etc., all the following Prime Minister, which regime that supported that in your mind, the psychology work at university, research with other university overseas, like Sweden, America, London, like, for example, Harvard University or Oxford University. So which government give you the most support in your research study, like joint venture in education area? Because if we the one who like a project leaders at university and we want all the students reach high distinction, 100% marks, so they can have jobs, because if they don't have marks, they cannot get jobs. So I just wondering, in your private practice, did you have a lot of help from the government?
No help from the government. No, it was a private practice. And I had a sliding scale of fees so that nobody was turned away and people paid what they could afford. So no. But that was when I did have a private practice for the first 15 or 18 years. And then after that, I worked with a company that was a company of mainly psychologists. And we had contracts with organizations to provide services to them. And many of them were government departments. So we worked with about 1,500 different organizations, including many government departments. And so the government was investing in their employees. And so were private enterprises investing in their employees by setting money aside or making resources available. If that organization or company experienced a trauma, they provided the support that was needed. So I think that was a good thing, that the people didn't have to pay for their own costs at that time. But I can't answer the bigger questions of which governments or which countries. That's too big a question for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I learned about your stories that people, if by grace of God, we should have vision, because in any organization, they run visions first and then missions.
Mhm.
So before we can do mission, we have to have vision. So we step into the safe land,
Mhm.
because it's no use that people have talents, but they get into the wrong land, like continent or the earth, like they get into the area of earthquake, for example,
Mhm.
and they have no vision or whatsoever. No angels come to the dream and let them, when they try to harm baby Jesus, the angel come to the dream and tell the parents that you have to take the baby away, so he won't get harmed. So that's why it's so important to develop vision. I mean, I don't know how people have it, because it's a gift from God. And maybe God just wants to give you experience in the way, like he pull you in a different directions of what you're supposed to do, like other things. But then he wants you to do inquiries or quests into suffering of human being. So therefore, the different tasks that job might want you to explore. That's why you've been thinking about search for the suffering or search for the truth or whatever. That a lot of people probably will not have time to look or to search for such, mystery topics. Just like if I'm searching, I will search for diamonds, for example, or happiness, or whatever, or universe, or stars like Venice. Or, I don't search for suffering. But so therefore, whatever happened to you is maybe God just want to pull you in a different direction. But if I'm a project leader at university, I will try to train my students to have 100% marks so they can get employment, they can have jobs, disregard of the races or which continents they come from. Thank
Tracy,
you.
Thank you, Arjun. Tracy, you want to talk? Tracy?
Yeah. Anyway, first of all, Marjorie, I just wanted to say thank you. Just beautiful talk, beautiful heart, and someone talking about suffering. You have a lot of joy as you speak. But anyway, when I think about my life, even from the beginning, I've had many traumas that I've had to overcome. Just many things. But when you asked the question, I thought about the time with my daughter and when she was a teenager, and it was hell. It was really hell. But God somehow was with us. It was, so difficult. There was just so much craziness going on around her. And I remember sitting at the end of the bed one night, and I was crying, wondering where she was. And I caught myself, as I was praying, and I said, God, you must have so many mothers praying to you like this. As I'm praying, I'm sure I'm not the only mother tonight praying like this, calling out to you to help my daughter to find a way, and she's fine now. She's sort of worrying about her own children now. But at that time, I could never imagine what's happening now. But, just in that moment of that intense pain,
yes,
just, aching for her safety and aching for her.
yes.
That suddenly, to be aware of the many other prayers going to God of the same type is a very beautiful experience, an unforgettable experience for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Zora, you want to talk something? Zora?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Marjorie. Sorry, I missed most of your talk because I had to do something, but still, I just loved the way you explained, like your writings, the way of telling stories. It's like a beautiful writer. I was already there and feeling that. But for my life, I think I feel that crisis and victory is always what we have to like embrace life. And I remember when I left Iran, I didn't know I'm leaving Iran. Like my brother said, or my mom said, you have to decide to leave now or forget about leaving Iran. And that was maybe about 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. It was after lunch, 1 o'clock. And I had to leave at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Like I had only a few hours to leave. And I said, yes, I'm going to be brave and leave. And I mean, it's not easy to leave. And you know that I have never been back to Iran. And, you know, it's a hard time. But then you start a new life, you know, everything is new, you know, learning the language. And it's just everything so new, but it's beautiful, you know. I'm happy that, you know, I tried it, and I feel it's a victory to me. And the other one also, I don't call it crisis, but is a big turbulence of your life. Like, you know, it's a big things, you go through it. And then even when you leave, every day you go through different types of crisis and victory. Mm-hmm. But at the end, I always try to be happy, mm-hmm, and take things as it comes, because I know somebody is like my father, or you can say Baha'u'llah, is always looking after you and is with you, like following, like being carried out with somebody is watching over you. I think that's a great feeling that. And I also love lots of these psychologists, which they put so many experiences and lots of stories. You know, I read a few of those, and I learned how to live life, not to complain all the time. You know, mm-hmm, complaining is not my way of living. Mm-hmm. I just learning from the experiences, and, you know, be grateful for what we have, and how we can, you know, make what's that, lemon juice from lemon or something. Yes. Yeah.
Lemonade.
Yeah, lemonade out of lemon. But I love lemon anyway. It's my favorite fruit. But I'm just saying that we have to be happy. And it's so great to help other people to learn, or to, you know, walk with them and make them happy. I really congratulate you for doing what you're doing.
Okay. Thank you, Zoe. And Dr. Marjorie, I just want to say the same thing, like it is a hard, but in my life, I had a trauma where I was on the CPA level as an accountant, and I had a child with special needs, and I came down from there to an accounts clerk, and I worked for a church. From that day, I have sort of learned that God gives you the answer at the last time or minute when you're suffering. So the only way you learn to live is trusting in God. It can be any religion, but trusting in God and saying, God, lead me through this.
Yes.
So and I really sort of have learned in my life that is what you can trust. And your true, you know, interesting stories says that, you know, we have to ask someone above from the other end is looking after us. And as Zora said, it could be your father, or it could be someone you loved, and it, trusting in the God makes you to lead the life. And I could say thank you for your meeting. And I also want to say, if most of you might not know, but Colin and Dr. Marjorie are siblings. So there's a lot. And we got Siva wants to say something, or Robert?
I want to thank Marjorie, because she helped me out many years ago when I was going through some major trauma. Even my faith was questioned. And after Marjorie spoke to me, I opened a book called Fire and Gold. And that evening, my brother rings me up. I was living in Sydney at the time, and the brother rings me up. He says, "What have you been drinking?" I'd been going from totally down there and as high as a kite. And Marjorie, you gave me a lovely gift of Abdul Baha.
Oh,
Well,
golly. Oh,
thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Siva? Siva, you want to say something?
I was going to not my own problem, but Marjorie, you were in Western Australia, living in the midst of many Indigenous communities, and the sufferings of Indigenous people in this land is a big story. And even today on the news, I saw there about 21,000 children taken out of their family. It's untold miseries of sufferings of the Indigenous people. Now, what as collectively, I mean, it is not an individual trauma. Collectively, now that you have been living with them and experienced as a psychologist, what as a people or as a nation or as an individual, what we should be doing to alleviate the sufferings of these Indigenous people?
I'm just going to say one thing, and that is less talking and more listening. In fact, no talking and lots of listening. Just to be, just to be receptive to hearing people's stories and honoring their experiences and honoring their knowledge and wisdom. And white people talk too much, and I've probably talked too much tonight. But what I learned from, what I continue to learn from my Indigenous friends is, when you're receptive, I'm going to say, sometimes we talk because we think that the talking will fill the gap, but silence and being comfortable in silence connects hearts so much faster than words. And to be comfortable in silence is to build trust much more rapidly. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you for that, Marjorie. I think it's somebody wants to talk. Sorry, Matthew, you want to talk, sir? Matthew?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. My name's Matthew, and yeah, thanks, Marge. That was good, beautiful yarn you done. I enjoyed all them little stories that you had in them, in the contents of all them. Understanding the process of grief and trauma. So it always refer, them kind of yarns, stories and yarns always reminds me of what God always says: the truth will set you free. Right now, I'll give you an example. Right now, I live here on a, Trace and them know where I live. I live on a reserve. So my Aboriginal reserve here is called Stanley Village. So if people don't understand what an Aboriginal reserve is, it's actually it's a process of what Australia done. They set it up as a concentration camp to actually wipe all my people off the face of the earth. So right here and right now, I still live here on this concentration camp, named after my grandfather, who went over and fought World War I and II as a light horseman. He come back home and he wasn't even allowed to even go to the pub with his digger mates. He had to get a little doggy tag and all this other stuff. Right now, today, I'm getting ready to actually prepare for sorry business for tomorrow. for one of my brothers. I got to make sure he got to the dream time. Yesterday, my auntie died. I'm still preparing for my other brother, who I found in the flat, who laid in the flat for 5 days dead. So this is right here and right now. This is in our lucky country we call Australia. This is grief and trauma that my people go through every day. And you got to understand, you know, it's a bit hard to try and tell the truth. Like our great God, no matter what God you come from, he always tell you the truth will set you free. But you got to understand about the process of truth. If it's based upon a lie, it can never be the truth. And right here on our great country, we base all of our truths upon a lie. We see in one of the oldest civilizations, the oldest living culture in the world, oldest religion in the world, actually being destroyed in a process what we call genocide. And everyone is allowing for it to happen. Premeditated genocide is a very hard process to deal with. And when people actually allow it to happen and actually embrace it to happen and say it's all right to happen, it's not, because I'm an Aboriginal man. I live on this country, what you call the lucky country, and my people are dying. Not yesterday, right here and right now. The oldest living culture in the world. We fight for every religion, everyone. We talked about the Holocaust in World War I, you know, and the genocide that happened to them people. The biggest genocide the world has ever seen is happening right here in front of everyone's eyes within our great world, to the oldest living culture in the world, the oldest Homo sapiens that live and walk upon every human right here and right now. We talk about love and harmony. We are the most humble and the most humblest people in the world. We love everyone. We'll embrace everything, no matter who they are. We welcome everyone, even though they're still here. And it's hard to welcome someone if they're already here in your lounge. But that's just a little snapshot of true reality of an Aboriginal person in our lucky country right here and right now. And for us to embrace, you know, genocide like we do as humans right now to the oldest living culture in the world is a disgrace to our God, who we actually put our trust in. We told him we will never let this happen to any human, to any person in this world. And we're allowing for it to happen every day to my people, to the oldest living religion in the world. We could teach so much to so many people. We sit here under the tree waiting with our hands open and our heart open all the time with nothing but love and harmony. We're willing to share, willing to listen. We're here. And, you know, on that note, I'd just like to say, that's what my culture is love, pure love. So my love goes to every one of you, you know, no matter how much suffering and pain I go through, and every one of my family members will go through. Our love will always be here for every single one of you, because whether you like it or not, we love you as family, just like everything else within our great place we call the world. Everything is balanced within everything. We're all here for a reason. That when we actually got blinkers on and we let some of this stuff go by and not really care, it makes you, you know, sometimes it makes you wonder. But I suppose sometimes might be a messenger too, eh? But I don't know. He works in mysterious ways, doesn't he? So love to all. Thank you all for listening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
That was
Matthew.
very, very beautiful. Thank you, Matthew.
Anyone else wants to ask or comment on it? It was a very good, inspiring life stories. Thank you, Dr. Marjorie. And I think it must have been hard for you to work with primary school children as well as with adults at sort of in the same time frame. But as you talked about George, who was in the primary school, I think it only takes every one of us someone to talk or someone to listen, and that's it. So how it changed George's life. But did you ever feel that you would like to meet Brian or whoever made you to that situation of trauma?
That's a good question. Okay, I might share this with you. Okay, so the person who attacked me, I'll just find this part. So this might take about 5 minutes to explain.
Yeah, happy to listen.
If you just bear with me. The person who attacked me, his name is Brian in this story, but it's not his real name. Okay.
Yes, that's
so I'll
okay.
change his name. Okay, but when he was a child, Brian, he was a student in my sister's class in the town. So she came, this was her first year out as a teacher, and he was a 7-year-old student in that class, and she loved him so much and couldn't reach him, didn't know how to reach him, because he would crawl under the tables and climb the trees and put the hose on the students when they were walking to music room. And every day she would come home after school, and we would try to find ways that she could reach him, and because she really loved him. And she had a lot of challenging kids in her class who weren't settled in the school environment. But the one that she really put so much effort into trying to assist was Brian. And one time I said, please invite him and his family to come and have dinner at our place. And he was in a foster family at that time. And the foster family, beautiful Christian family they were. And they came, and he came with other children. And so he was about 7, and he came and he sat on the floor and played, and we had a lovely evening. Anyway, so 10 years later, this attack happened. Now, what happened was, so I'd recovered from the attack, and we'd moved down to Perth, and we were living in the hills outside Perth. And I decided he'd been in jail for a few years. Okay, he was given 12 years, I think, in jail. And I decided to write to him. Just read this part of the book. A couple of years later, we had moved to the hills on the edge of Perth, and I decided to write to Brian. I didn't tie myself in mental or emotional knots, examining why I wanted to write. I didn't agonize in prayer. I was in a peaceful place, and it simply felt right to write. In my letter, I expressed hope that he was getting the help he needed and not suffering too much in jail. I mentioned the dinner when he came to our house as a child with his foster family, and that my sister had been his teacher. The focus of the letter was on him and his well-being, and not upon the impact of the event upon myself and my family. At some deep level, I wanted him to know I was not carrying any anger towards him, and that I wished him well for the future. Having written the letter in a good spirit and posted it, I felt liberated. I had no expectation of a reply. Indeed, having written it, I then forgot about it. Many months passed. A letter arrived in the mail in an orangey brown envelope with the bold letters OHMS on His Majesty's service above my name and address. I was home alone. My husband was at work and both the children were at school. Without realizing who might be writing to me, I opened the letter. It was handwritten. After reading the letter several times, I carefully folded the paper and returned it to its envelope, knowing that I would share the letter with Peter when he came home that evening. This was the letter that he wrote to me. I would like to start by apologizing for not writing earlier. I am currently doing a program which involves a lot of study, learning ways of getting my life back together. I feel that I have not been hard done by the law and society itself because of the pain and emotional grief I have caused you. I have also had a memory display from your letter as well. I feel very angry and sad about myself for doing what I have done to your life. The childhood memory of good people who invited me to have dinner with them and play with other children. The past 5 or 6 years has been emotional and sad for me. I've wandered through my sentence, wanting to say that I'm desperately sorry about the ordeal I've put your life through. I'm now very thankful to have this opportunity to be able to let my emotions go for the pain I have caused your life. I thank you very much for your letter and the opportunity to express my deep sorrow for the wrongs I have done you. Best wishes for a happy future. Sincerely.
That's good. Yes, that's good. At least you realized that.
It was very, very beautiful healing for him and for myself to have had that beautiful exchange. Yeah.
At least they realized at one stage. Yeah. Thank you. I guess you have a small.
Well, thank you, Auntie Marjorie. There's another questions about from now on in the future. Obviously, we are looking because you handle a lot of kids in the past. So obviously, you are well known and people probably will do headhunting you for other major jobs. What I'm seeing it now is now people still create COVID virus in the laboratory. So they still doing scientific research and vaccines research, and they try to do which medicine or vaccination is the best for people, including children from 5 to 11 or something, or 5 to 12. The future of all these vaccinations still under the microscope. I mean, still under through the screening and data and everything. So what is your ideas about how to fix all this problem? Because one COVID like Delta, and now a different COVID coming out variant, and so they could create another. You know, they keep doing it because they created the virus, what they call proxy in the labs. So they're not stopping it because it's all about money, it's all about vaccines, it's all about commercial dealing and manufacturing. And the kids now get thrown into the process. So what I'm saying, in about 10 years' time, what's going to happen to the children of today? And what the psychologists, I mean, you should be like, you know, helping with all the principle and ethic and moral of whatever that been happening. I mean, for the last 2 years, they haven't touched the children. They've been trying the vaccine and medicine and everything on everybody else, but not the kids. But now they pull the kids in. It's not a bad idea, but the thing that we still experimenting the science and medicine aspect of the virus.
Mhm.
So we had to support the government, as you say, because we are good citizens. We support the government and overseas government like America and Sweden and Britain and everybody else. So we cannot say no the way they want to vaccinate the kids, but I'm talking about mental illness or whatever happened if, just say they bring the kids to the psychologist and said, this kid got a problem with behavior, whether that behavior comes from the vaccine or the anxiety, or this kid really have problem with behavior disorder, or what do you call hypertension or something, attention deficit, some sort of thing, they created it. So how, if we don't use the audit and the data, how we gonna know how they give the children a correct medicine? You know, like wrong medicine destroy their brain. In the future, they turn out to be like different human beings with all these tablets.
Can I interrupt, Jung? I think that's
Please.
all. Basically, the doctors do a lot of research or a lot of questions and then decide the medication, right?
I read a newspaper today and they all talking about they're gonna use Pfizer on the kids from 5 years old to 11 years old around the clock in January, the coming January. And at the moment, we still try to, you know, to do experiment and people, we do through the Zoom, the information we got it also through Zoom, professional bodies, Australian professional body, telling us that people still creating proxy COVID virus in the labs. So when we're gonna stop? When we're gonna stop the process?
That's something it's hard for Marjorie to answer. I think
it's impossible. I wouldn't dream of trying to answer. I honor you for being concerned about the future and putting attention on all the unknowns. All I can do is trust the medical expertise and follow the best medical advice. That's all I can do. And I've retired as a psychologist.
I remember last year, I stayed with you and I just say, please, Marjorie, please don't retire. You are needed. I tried to get you out of it.
But I just want to say something, just a couple of things. One thing, when you're young, you think you can change the world and you want to change the world and you have all sorts of hopes that you can or might be part of, you know, something. And as you get older and older, you realize the only person you can change is yourself. The only person I can control, and I'm struggling to do that, is myself. So that's all I can do to, you know, strive to be the best version of myself that I can be in any situation. But one thing that I want to say about the mystery of suffering that I've learned, and it may not have come through in the stories I shared, is that when we go through a difficult time, we slowly break out of this prison of self that we are born into, you know, this self-centered prison that we're born into, you know, everything's about us. And we realize, just like Tracy eloquently shared about when she was saying that desperate prayer, and she realized how many mothers were also praying at the same time. And so suffering mysteriously connects us across, you know, across ages, across culture, across religion, across belief systems. And we realize how interconnected we are and how powerful love is, as Matthew eloquently expressed, love is everything. And so we increasingly step out of our little self prison and step out into a world where we recognize that we are interconnected, and love is always the answer. Being open to, what we can learn from others and what we can contribute to their well-being. And when we're going through a dark time, we find new capacities that we wouldn't have found otherwise. So the difficult time brings forth new capabilities within us that if life had just been easy, those capabilities wouldn't have been needed. And then, we can draw strength from knowing that God, as Perry's quote was about, God doesn't test us beyond our capacity. That even though the test might seem massive at the time, just knowing that it's within our capacity and that God is loving and nurturing us to draw closer to him gives us an inner sense that we can find the capacities needed to move through it with more grace.
I agree. Yes, thank you. Siva? Siva, you wanted to ask something? Say something?
Maybe my internet is not so good. I hope you can hear me all. I just wanted to let you know, we have another Indigenous friend. She's, if you know the Baha'i, some of the Baha'is might know Uncle Noel Bond from Thursday Island.
Oh.
It is his niece.
Oh, where is he?
He is no longer with us, but his niece.
His niece.
Is he a Donia Landy Ariel? I don't know, but she is muted and also I can't see her face.
Sorry, I haven't got my light on. I was just relaxing in the dark, but I'll put my light on for you too.
Yes,
Thank you, Siva.
Yes.
Oh.
I call her Faith. That's the name I call her, but
it's still not very clear, is it?
It's okay.
So very
nice to see your face.
Thank you, Marjorie.
I've been to Thursday Island and I've met your beautiful grandfather.
Uncle.
Oh, my
Yes.
uncle.
Your
my
uncle.
No.
Yes.
Oh, how wonderful. That's great news.
Thank you.
Yeah, because
that was a very special trip.
Well, that must have been a while ago.
It was the late 1990 something.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for sharing everything that you did tonight. And I was really surprised that Uncle Noel, he chose the Baha'i faith. After I realized why, because he's so gentle and loving and he's so soft and gentle and just sweet, he's so different from my other uncles, completely different. So then it made sense. But yeah, because we were a Christian family and very, adamant Christian family. But yeah, Uncle, and he put on my mum's tombstone. I love this, and please remind me and correct me. Plant not but the rose in but the rose in the garden of thine heart, or something.
In the garden of thy hearts, plant not by the rose of love.
Oh,
if I said it right, I don't know.
That sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you write that to me, please, again? Could someone text me that? As I really do love that saying, and Uncle would always share that at in our family meetings as well. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Faith, for joining us. Thank you, Marjorie. I am here in Haifa, in Israel.
Oh, nice to see you.
Thank you. It's good that
and my wife,
that's a blessing in disguise that the earlier speaker canceled and you were able to join us.
It's my pleasure to be with everyone. Thank you.
That's my wife. She's in Haifa.
Oh,
Vasi.
where is her picture? I can't see her picture.
Here I am here. And if you want, I can show you something which you would like.
Yes. Yes, I can see you now. Lovely. How wonderful that you're in Haifa.
Thank you. And that's a sign of Bab. Can you see it
Yes.
from the window?
Oh, how wonderful. That's fantastic. I can see.
Thank you much.
What about the baby? Can you show us the baby?
Baby, he's sleeping. That's why my camera was off, because I was with him. Now he went to sleep.
That's good. Yeah.
Enjoy, Vasanta.
Thank you.
Anyone else wants to say something, Siva? Looks like your hand is still up, Siva.
I'm okay. We are almost 9. So if there are any new friends, Victoria, or anyone else, if you have any comments, otherwise we can close. And I should thank Colin and Marjorie for arranging the talk and a short notice. And also, I really thank Tracy and Marina for supporting me in organizing these meetings to be the master of ceremony and host the meeting.
And Ahmed as well.
Ahmed as well. Thank you, Vasanta.
Thank you. We have built a good, yes. So thank you very much and God bless you all.
I think there is a hand up. There is one more.
I just want to add something that
Ahmed.
Reading the tablets of Abdu'l-Baha or talks of Abdu'l-Baha, one realizes that we are here in this world to develop the spiritual qualities that we need for the world higher than this. Like a child that is in the womb of the mother is developing arms and legs. And he says that these hardships and sadnesses and even joy are the tools that lift up our spirituality, develop our capacity in a spiritual life. And those are the things that we need to develop the body, I'll call it the body or the soul that we need in order to live in the next world. So we should appreciate even hardships when they happen to us, although it's very hard.
There's a question from Donia. Donia is asking.
Sorry, I just jumped in at the last minute. Oh, sorry. It's just amazing. When I joined, Marjorie asked I was listening to the stories. It was really beautiful what was being written, and then the question about finding joy in pain, and I just thought it was amazing, because that was what I woke up thinking this morning, and I texted my son about Father Abraham, and about how he had to sacrifice his son, and although he had waited for so long, and it was quite painful for him, nevertheless, out of obedience, he followed what he felt that he had to do. And then anyway, he knew already. It was like he had to do this out of obedience, but he already knew the outcome that he was already promised was a promise from God, that you would have as many children as the stars in the sand, and he'd waited so long for this child. Now he had to go and sacrifice the son. But yet he knew the promise and he believed that so much. And I think that's what I'm learning through the pain and the joy in suffering is like, and you get to, you get through it, because he says, in your weaknesses, I make you strong. He says, I make you strong. And so when you do, and you come out of it and you go, whew, I did that. And you know what? I feel like I'm stronger. And then something else comes up and you go, that little bit of faith, I gained a bit of faith from that. And it's like that spurs you on to loving God more, because you know, I can feel I have this substance. It's that substance that he knew everything was okay. That was
Beautiful.
sorry.
No, so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I really, that was beautifully expressed. And thank you for talking about Abraham as well. And I want to just say one thing about Ahmad's quote about the next world and our development of virtues for the next world. This is absolutely true, I believe. But also we're creating heaven on earth here. And these virtues that we're developing through our suffering help us create that heaven on earth here as we connect with each other in more loving ways.
Thank you. Anyone else for a final questions? It looks like there's a few hands up, is it? No.
I just wanted to say the last thing Marjorie said is so promising, not to have heaven on earth. We don't need to wait to die to see something. We can see it here, even with loving each other and having a good time, even like tonight, sharing our experience.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy.
So it's nearly, what time is it? Nearly 9, and special thanks finally for Marjorie. And it's really, really, I have spoken about suffering, but just looking at religions before, but your one sort of stories which are really inspiring everyone, and how we should help and understand others' situation. Unless you walk in that shoes, you don't know what they are doing, like that. So thank you again, and sincere thanks for that. And Tracy, you want to say something and finish off? Or Tracy?
Just thank you, everyone, that we are building something beautiful here, and thank you. And we're all praying for each other to be able to be building the kingdom of heaven on earth, aren't we? God's mining gold, the gold of love, through our difficulty. That's what it's coming out of us. When we're suffering, clears that away so that the love can more come out. And as Matthew was saying, love's the most important thing, and faith. And if there's anyone that's suffering on this planet, it's our Aboriginal brothers and sisters. So when they talk about love, we know, and in the midst of what they're experiencing, it's the most real thing. So anyway, I've got nothing else to say.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think those who have missed out a bit here and there, Perry or Siva will be sending the recording on the YouTube. Is that right, Siva? The recording will be sent to everyone. Okay, thank you very much.
He's meditating.
Maybe he's
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night,
Have a good
everyone.
time, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yalu.
Bye.
Yalu.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yalu.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.